Okay. Okay, do this a little thing with me. So I want you to just take a moment and just close your eyes just for a second. And I want you to envision, just picture a place that just sucks. Just everything about it is terrible. Oh man, this is super lame. Why am I here? Why am I doing this? Now, imagine if that place didn't suck. That is what our next speaker does, is take things and places that are terrible and makes them not terrible anymore. I am super excited for this. This, in addition to being a transformative individual, is the only person who's speaking tonight who made the wise mistake of hiring me ever to do anything. You might call him Max Musicant. I call him Max Musican. Please, a big round of applause, Mr. Max Musicant.
Thanks, Tane. So I'd like to pose a few questions to get our imaginations going. First, how can we design spaces in this fractured time that create trust, community, and healing? 2, what is present when these spaces embody these characteristics? 3, what if the answer to these questions lies in how we took care of our spaces? At the Musicant Group, as Tay mentioned, we create places where people want to be, and we do that and have found that we can achieve that through an ecosystem approach that really has found that it's the relationship between the design of a space, the care of that space, and the activities and events and uses in that space all working together that really creates a place that everyone enjoys. And that this is all done through constant cycles of engaging with users, communicating to all parties, and assessing what's going on. And when these 6 elements are working in concert, you get spaces that are useful, fundamentally, emotionally meaningful, and able to adapt over time. So how do these materialize in the world, or not? A common trap that we have in our society is to overbuild and undercare for our spaces, particularly here in America. We have the tendency to look at a problem and think that tearing something down completely and rebuilding the physical structure itself is somehow going to solve all the other problems that exist as part of that space. I think a great example of this locally is Nicollet Mall. I think several years ago it was identified that we all collectively wanted more activity, more vitality in our downtown core. But somehow we all ended up with the answer to tear down what was a pretty good street, Nicollet Mall, and rebuild a new one in its place without solving for the fundamental problem of there was not enough things to do downtown. So we spent $50 million, 2 years of construction, several business closures, and we ended up with a pretty good street again that lacks things to do. So it's not just destroy and rebuild, but how we care for a space really matters. On the flip side, a way that we can create these characteristics in space is to meaningfully include those that care and use a space. Not just the people who are patronizing it every day, but also facilities and operations staff that have a wealth of wisdom to bring in into the process. An example about how we did this was in 2015, we were invited by the downtown business community to reimagine what is possible at a bus stop. And they gave us one at Nicollet and 6th that lacked a shelter. And rather than coming in with a pre-imagined design, we engaged with the riders and we asked them what they needed to experience. And they told us that they wanted better places to sit, protection from the elements, they wanted to know when the bus was going to arrive, and they were bored out of their mind. So we knew the scope that we had to design for, and so we came up with Living Room Station Your Home Before You Get Home, which had comfortable seating, protection, a schedule, and a cubby there that had art and games and puzzles for people to do, as well as having programming like free live music and free coffee and tea, and even umbrella escorts when it rained. And so while people thought that all this stuff would get stolen within a couple hours, we didn't lose a single throw pillow in a month. And in fact, people started writing us notes in the cubby and leaving us them for us to read unsolicited. This is one of them. I stop here with my 2-year-old daughter every morning. This used to be the worst part of our daily commute. Sitting on this bus bench always was scary with a 2-year-old and the vehicles driving by so closely. Now we feel warm, safe, and invited here daily. This stop is the highlight of our daily commute, and the bus always seems to arrive too soon. Thank you so much for taking this step to improve our daily lives. We are truly grateful. And I like to think that if a bus stop can make people feel this way, really any space is capable of doing that. On the flip side, another trap is we can imagine or create an undesirable population, a group of people that we deem unworthy and that we don't want to have in a space. And it's a total construct, and we've found that it's good activity drives out bad activity, not people. Everyone is invited. It's the activity that really matters. And one of my favorite examples of this is we did some work with SBS Commerce Tower, which is a downtown office building, to transform an underutilized lawn into a dynamic space with seating and games and events that became so attractive for not only the tenants of the building, but surrounding downtown users, which we thought was a good thing. But the property managers told us that there were evil folks that were taking up the limited amount of enjoyment in the space. Chief among them were the terrible employees of Ameriprise Financial Corp. that worked across the street. So if the employees of a Fortune 500 company can be an undesirable population, I think that reveals the hypocrisy and stupidity of that concept in general. Going back to a positive, a strategy for creating these characteristics is to solve for the experience, not just design for a design or an object's sake. An example of this is our work in the North Loop in the Nordic Plaza. And we were working with the design team, the developers, and thinking about they wanted to have markets and winter activities there. Some of the early designs looked cool from an aerial view, but didn't really allow for the functionality of a market with pathway that needed to be 15 feet wide. Similarly, the lawn was too short to be able to accommodate winter curling, and so making those slight adjustments of pathway expansion and lawn growth made the plaza immensely more usable to actually program it rather than without costing really any money on the front end. So to close, I'd like to tell a quick story about what is possible and that users of a space can be more than that. They can actually become stewards of that space itself. And so we saw this happen in our work with Westminster Presbyterian Church. They had acquired an adjacent building, which came with a dilapidated plaza that they were going to expand into, and they wanted to discern what was possible over the coming year. So for the next 3 years, we worked with them to transform it into a very dynamic and inviting space that invited all the different populations of downtown. And one of the most popular features there was a ping pong table. Now, we went through a lot of ping pong balls, not because people are stealing them, but it's windy and they blow away and you lose them even in your basement. So I would from time to time go and replenish the caddy with my white ping pong balls. And one day I arrived to this. And when I saw that orange ping pong ball there, I knew it was a powerful message, because what this told me was not only were people enjoying the space, which I knew, but there were a group of people there that were being stewards of the space and making it better for the people around them. So to close, I'd like you to imagine a world where every space meets our functional and emotional needs, where everyone feels that they belong. Imagine the possibility that the best day in a structure's life is not the ribbon cutting, but in 10, 50, even 200 years, because it's been used, loved, and adapted. And imagine a world that is cared for and where the act of care is seen as high design. Thank you.